Well, this Wednesday Night War was so amazing seeing two good shows. AEW had their unsanctioned lights out match consistent of Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa, and also NXT are now developing their storyline and upcoming matches that will lead them to the next Takeover event, Stand and Deliver around April and WrestleMania week. But also, I'm going to give you guys a little discussion about what's been going on recently with Andrade. We know we haven't seen him for quite some time since October, since he got hurt. New developments are being told about his recent request for his release, what's been going on, the whole enchilada. So, all of that will be reviewed and discussed about on this episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to Deleted Wrestle Zone. All things that it's pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, matches, wrestlers, and championships. I'm your host, J Rod here. So let's begin with the Wednesday Night Wars views and ratings. Now, you can take a wild guess who actually won the ratings for and the viewership this week. It came out back once again to AEW for their Dynamite event, St. Patrick's Slam. They gained 768,000 views compared from last week, which was 743,000. Not bad, but fortunately, their rate from the 18 to 49 demographic went from went to a 0.28. From last week, it was a 0.32. So basically, that's what really happened. I mean, it's as long as they're still in the ratings are really good, that it tells it. As for NXT, they dipped down from their previous week. This week they gained 540 no 597,000 views compared from last week, which was 691,000 views. As for their 18 to 49 demographic, they got a 0.13 compared from last week, which was a 0.18. Now, we know some things like that happen because some people lose interest, or we have those who watch both shows. So basically, we are now getting into that whole thing. But right now, let's review AEW Dynamite's latest event, St. Patrick's Day Slam. All right, so we now start with AEW's Dynamite St. Patrick's Slam. Opening match was Penta El Cero M taking on Cody. Remember, this thing started a week ago where Penta took it too far to Cody, saying that he's going to break his arm to make him feel that he won't be able to hold his unborn daughter, who we know that his wife Brandy is expecting. So this became one of those grudge matches. I mean, it was a pretty good match, not to mention seeing it. Of course, there was a lot of factors that were played out. Was Cody's injured shoulder. Later, Cody had to try to disable Penta's feet in order to slow him down with his speed, because we know luchadores are in fact really fast wrestlers when it comes to the ring. But frankly, it did ended up in Cody Rhodes' favor when he picked up the victory. But however, Penta was not satisfied, so he continued to attack Cody. The Nightmare family showed up, but of course, the last person to show up was QT Marshall. So they were asking him, where's he been? They haven't questioned what has been his problem yet, but we are yet to see what's going on in the Nightmare family. We know we could see maybe someone break away. I'm not sure. I mean, that is like a story that we could expect at some point, but what we got to do is wait and see what we're going to go for. Now, the Young Bucks are well aware, since they were interviewed, that they're going to face Ray Phoenix and Pac for the AEW tag team titles, but however, they were interrupted by Don Callis, aka the Invisible Hand. Even they took a shot at WWE with the no leg slap T-shirt to get into WWE skin. We know that the WWE has banned that, but AEW is not going to do that. But however, Don Callis kind of tried to make a point saying that Kenny fell out of favor because they weren't the same guys that they were back then. But however, the Bucks don't buy that. They believe in their minds or in hearts, I think, that Don Callis is a bad influence on Kenny. So basically, they were being judged on their own character by Don Callis. But however, is the Bucks who are trying to determine what what to do. So basically, they were put in a rock and a hard place in that matter. Now we get the singles action debut of Jade Cargill. We all can talk about how she really made an impression in her debut match 2 weeks ago, again with teaming with Shaquille O'Neal, taking on Cody and Red Velvet. Her debut match was against Danny Jordan. You can take a wild guess anyway. Uh, Jade Cargill is won the match, but however, I feel like they're still building that story with Red Velvet. Red Velvet was in the audience watching, not impressed by Jade Cargill. Originally I think we all assumed should have been Brandy, but we all know it could never happen while she's pregnant with her first child. But I think with Red Velvet kind of fits into the whole thing. But we don't know when that happened. I'm hoping at some point this rivalry between Red Velvet and Jade Cargill may go all the way to Double or Nothing this coming May, or maybe sooner. I'm not 100% sure, but like I said, all we can do is wait and see what's going to happen from now until then. Now, last week we saw the most impressive ending in AEW since they first began. MJF formed his own faction consistent of Tully Blanchard, FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler, who are FTR members, Sean Spears, and of course his insurance policy, Warlow, calling themselves the Pinnacle. So basically, I like how this whole idea was happening. It's like MJF, he is the genius in a way. It's kind of like he's building up saying it's time for Jericho to go. It's time for someone to take matters in their own hands, to take control of AEW under their own power, and they call themselves the Pinnacle. Now, I don't know if that is a good strong name, but you guys can tell me what you guys think about that, because I don't know. It would have been a lot stronger name for something, because I know some people say this was going to be like a somewhat version of the Four Horsemen, which is something we were expecting, but there's now six of them, you know? But we'll see what's going to happen in the upcoming weeks. I'm not sure, because right now it's speculating that we may have the Blood and Guts match that we should have had last year with the Inner Circle and the Elite, but it looks like we may have that maybe this year. I'm not sure, but we'll see where we're going to go with that. Now, we have Matt Hardy teaming up not only with Private Party, with Butcher and the Blade, taking on the Jurassic Express and Bear Country. Now, there was some good factors that were played out thanks to Excalibur, where, if you guys know, it was Bear Country that eliminated Luchasaurus out of the Casino Tag Team Royale. That was something that was being played out that I think I like how they were talking about it. But however, Bear Country were doing things differently than what Jurassic Experience are known for. They tossed Marco Stunt over the ring. They're like, "What are you doing?" Basically, they tagged themselves in, that sort of thing. Now, do we see both Bear Country down the line face in the feud with Jurassic Experience? I don't know, because of that, it did allow for Matt Hardy and his team to pick up the victory, which was kind of like we saw that coming. But like I said, we'll see where they're going to go with that. Now, of course, John Moxley and Eddie Kingston had some words to say about John Moxley is not 100% well after what happened in Revolution, where he took a brutal beating by Kenny Omega. And of course, they are set to face against, and they're sending a message to them on all of that. Now, we've been expecting more about Christian. How, why is he in AEW? It appears that he said that he wants to etch his own legacy or cement it in AEW. But we do know exactly what he wants to do. It turns out he may want to get a shot of the AEW World title, which is consistent is being held by Kenny. Now we can speculate from here all the way to Double or Nothing that sooner or later we may have that match. I mean, for me, I would like to see that in Double or Nothing. I mean, it would feel perfectly, but however, it's like it's too long. We're like maybe 2 months away or so. But yeah, I don't know how you guys would feel about that, but that's how I see it. Now we get to the match between Kingston and Moxley against the Good Brothers. I mean, it was a pretty good match. Basically, you can see how you got Kingston and Moxley. They're not like exactly in the same type of level with the Good Brothers because they're in a whole different level than them. They're like throwing every possible way to win their match. Luckily for them, it was Moxley who picked up the victory, but this feud between them is far from over. Uh, they were able to snap um, Kingston's ankle using the chair. They even tried to snap Moxley's neck, but however, Kenny even showed up because he wanted to ensure he sends a message to him. But however, the Bucks showed up, and of course, they tried to reason with him. But however, you know how Don Callis is. Even the Good Brothers tried to do the too sweet. They just walked away. They had it. I think now they're seeing the bigger picture that Don Callis is the problem. So as long as Don Callis is still with Kenny, it fears that maybe their friendship is over. But we don't know what's going to happen then. Now, Shivani set out for an interview with Sting and Darby Allin. As you know, Sting and Darby won their street fight match at Revolution, but also Darby retained his title last week on Dynamite. But however, he did state it that he defended this title 3 times. But however, he feels that he wants to honor one of the greatest TNT champions of all time, and everybody knew who that person was. It was Brody Lee. So he opened a challenge to all the members of Dark Order. So who's going to be the lucky contestant? And luckily, later on in the show, it did reveal Johnny Hungy actually stepped up to the plate, and he is the first candidate to, in fact, accept the challenge. Now, while this was happening once again on borrowed time, Lance Archer and Jake the Snake Roberts showed up, sending a message once again to anybody feeling like he's being left out or trying to steal other people's time. That's pretty much what it is. I'm not sure if we're going to see Sting taking on Lance Archer down the line, but I think that will be something to be considered. But however, the interesting happened as soon as Archer and Roberts left. We see Team Taz. Once again, it's like this whole thing between Darby and Sting is far from over. But apparently one member had a different peace of mind that he had. And that person was Brian Cage. Brian Cage comes out saying that Ricky Starks was wrong. He's not the same Sting that we all remembered. But he said a guy who went through hell these past couple of weeks with the getting powerbombed by Cage in the street fight. Cage gave his respects to Sting, and the others were not liking this. Could this mean that maybe Brian Cage could be stepping down from the Team Taz. I'm not. Well, I don't know. I mean, it seems like kind of interesting how Taz picked up Brian Cage, took him under his wing, and now showing respect to Sting, feeling that Taz is thinking he's out of his mind. They refuse to accept the fact that they beat them. But it is what it is. But we'll see what's going to happen. Now, speaking of Darby Allin, we all know what happened also last week about Scorpio Sky when he lost to Darby Allin for the TNT title. Scorpio felt like, okay, I did everything right. I was the good guy. I was the Boy Scout. But he felt, okay, enough is enough. So basically, he saying he no longer wants to play by the rules or whatever he's going to do. So he's going to make his own statement from here on out. I think this is maybe something that we want to see what's going to happen since we have been seeing him involved as singles competitor recently for the past year or so, but I'm excited to see where they're going to go with this. Or should I say curious where they're going to go. Now, next match we have is Rey Fenix taking on Angelico. Rey Fenix is a fantastic competitor, a great athlete. Then you got Angelico, who's not only a great athlete, but also learned how to do submission techniques. He studied things like this down in Mexico when he was wrestling. That is something we got to pay attention about. But I wouldn't expect Angelico to take a really good match, but Phoenix was able to pull it off no matter what, because people can say Rey Fenix is a tactic competitor. True, but he's also a fantastic singles competitor. And that plays excuse me. That plays out pretty well. And I say it did help him win. But when are we going to see him and Pac going to be challenging for the tag titles? Some say double or nothing. I don't know. From here on out, we just got to wait and see. Now, as you know, Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy issued out a challenge to Miro and Kip. Now, Miro has no intent, but Kip does. So, basically, Kip is willing to accept the challenge, but I don't know. I don't know how Miro will feel about it. He feels like he's done with it. He wants to focus on something else. But Kip is not going to let it go. So, let's see what's going to happen next week when this match, the arcade match, is going to be around. I'm kind of curious how they're going to set all the arcades around the ring. Now we get to the main event, which is the one match that many fans have talked about all over social media. The unsanctioned lights out match. Oh my effing God. That was the most brutal match I've ever witnessed. I mean, you wouldn't expect, like, this type of match ever happening with WWE, but this one was one of the most fantastic matches I've ever witnessed. I didn't expect Thumbtacks to come out, but wow. But it was so great. I was like, wow, pretty amazing. But I was like so happy that Thunder Rosa finally took out Rebel out of the picture and kicked her out of the ring and put her through a table. And of course, putting Britt Baker through the thumbtacks. I'm like, whoa. But finally, she put her through a table doing the Fire Thunder driver, allowing herself to win. But if you guys ever seen the fallout on YouTube, what happened after that match, they received a great standing ovation, not only from the fans, but all the wrestlers who were there who watched this. I mean, it's a pretty good match. And of course, if you guys must know, Mick Foley gave his thumbs up. So, bang, bang. What can I say? I mean, people can say it's brutal, but You never expect to see women to main event in this type of way of a match. But I have to say, I know AEW has been criticized for ever since they first started out with their women's division. But this could be that one time where, like they're telling the critics, "Shut up." I'm not sure, but I hope they get the message. And I know people who criticize them over the women's division, they better shut up for once. So I think that's it right now with AEW. So let's move on with NXT. So as you know, I mentioned this earlier about NXT. We're now heading to the next Takeover event, Stand and Deliver, which was announced a week ago. Now it appears that we're getting some stories build up that could lead to NXT Takeover. Amongst them is the match that we probably are expecting: Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross for the NXT title. Now Finn Balor addresses now when he comes out in the ring, saying he beat Adam Cole, but now that his biggest obstacle is against the man who never lost the title, who had to relinquish his title due to an injury. I'm talking about Karrion Kross. Now, Karrion Kross exchanged words, all of this and that. But Scarlett, I have to say, the way Scarlett portrayed in this segment during in the ring, I have to say I love how she played it. You see, she envisioned saying both men will carry tag team gold. And here comes, speak of the devil, the tag team champions, Orny Lorcan and Danny Burch, who did not take it lightly. But however, I was impressed how Scarlett persuaded them. She looked at Burch, saying that he's confident, and Lorcan, he's the guy who knows what he wants. But he reminded them, you don't want to assert yourselves being called a coward. So they're like, no, 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 no. She has a point. So basically, they accepted the challenge and they put the tag team titles on. I'm like, wow, I have to say how persuasive Scarlett played out in this one. I'm like, wow, they should put her more like this, being more persuasive. But I'll say, nice job. Nice job, Scarlett. You get the Academy Award for that. I have to say kudos on that. Now we get the most interesting match, the opening match, Dexter Lumis versus Austin Theory. As you know, Johnny Gargano paid someone to say that Lumis said mean things to Theory, and of course Theory went on his own. He tries to beat out Dexter Lumis, but of course he tried to play. Theory played a mind game with him, but it didn't work. But apparently he got silenced by Dexter Lumis. So I don't know if that therapy worked for Theory from Gargano, because he's not a therapist. But we'll see about that. Now, recently we've been seeing the development of Imperium now making their play coming to NXT. Now we have seen last year Eichner and Bartel been around. Then Wolf came. They've been trying to recruit Thatcher, but of course they want him to recruit Ciampa. But however, something happened to Thatcher. Uh, Ciampa took out Wolf from what he said. Then he tried to take out. Then he said that he's going to take out everyone else. So that's the match that's going to happen later on. Now, we were anticipated Adam Cole to come out, and he's saying he gave his peace of mind. He knows he was in the verge of obtaining the NXT title. He calls out Kyle O'Reilly that he was jealous. But he tried to call him out, but apparently William Regal comes out telling him he was banned from the building for his own protection. But of course, Kyle O'Reilly sent out a message to him, or threatening messages, saying that he knows where he works out, he knows the places he hangs out, that he's going to end them, and that's a promise. So this kind of went on for later on. Like you don't see much of it. You do see later Cole promised he's going to end him, and then later they get arrested out of the blue. Regal was not too happy with the result of what's been happening, but he did state it near the end of the episode of the show where he said that he's going to address the matter between Cole and O'Reilly, saying that they're going to settle this once and for all. My guess, this could take place at NXT Takeover Stand and Deliver. That's my guess right there. That's going to happen next week, that announcement, but if that's the case, I'm all for it. I'm sure you guys too, if you guys see that. Now, as you know, we did have last week the unveilment of the NXT Women's Tag Team Division. Regal crowned Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez as the first ever inaugural champions. But their first challengers were a team that we've seen in the NXT Women's Dusty Road Tag Team Classic, Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. They beat them out of the title, and now we have a new tag team champions. And I have to say, it's going to be a very interesting thing to see the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships in NXT. I'm going to do a discussion about that, about why I think it's a good idea, and what could be, why would people dislike the idea, what is the good part of it, pros and cons that. But that's for another conversation. Now, as soon as they were being interviewed over this, knowing that they are making history, apparently, much like themselves, they challenged for the titles. Other challengers came out, and one of them is coming from the Robert Stowe brand, Jessie Kamea and Aaliyah. So they accepted the challenge. They said that they'll put the titles on the line next week. But however, Shotzi Blackheart likes to play a little fun with Robert Stone because he got tanked not once, not twice, but 3 times. Now, as you know, Legado del Fantasma had their match against Breezango, but coincidentally, this was also leading to another storyline that's being built up that involves Jordan Devlin. Now, I wasn't pumped too much with the match between Legado Fantasma, Walking Wild, and Raul Mendoza taking on Breezango. But it was a good match, not to lie about that. But of course, much of it has been talked about now, the issues between both Escobar and Devlin. Now, as soon as we see that Legado won, picked up a victory for their team, Santos is calling out Devlin because he saw that he arrived. And Devlin shows up, giving his little statement, his little peace of mind. He said that he didn't go out and try to play games or have little stooges do his job. He did tell him that his borrow time is done. Santos Escobar doesn't see it that way. He sees it like more, he's been a defending champion, which is true. But however, you got to look at it the other way. Jordan Devlin never lost the title because due to what happened to the pandemic, he was unable to defend the title not only here in the US, but also in the UK. So Santos Escobar decided, okay, let's settle this once and for all to prove who is the real NXT Cruiserweight at NXT TakeOver. I have to say this is another build-up, and I knew right from day one that once we were going to have this, that this was going to be inevitable, that's going to happen, that this was going to once again go, who's going to win? Now, you probably ask me who would I root for. I have to say I have to root for Devlin. Not because, of that, but he does make a fantastic point. He never lost it. He was determined to prove that he is a fighting champion as well. But due to the pandemic, he feels like Escobar wasn't the real champion right from the start. But we'll see what that happened. But the whole thing ended when Devlin headbutted Santos right in the mouth or so. He was bleeding out right here, sending a message to Santos saying that he never bet against the Irish Ace. That is something we know for a fact. So I said this on the comment section and on Instagram. I go for Devlin because you never bet against the Irish Ace. Now we get to an interesting women's match. We have Zoe Clark, who really put an impression on us when she took out Io Shirai. She was set to face against Dakota Kai. Also a good match. I have to say, Zoe Clark, who is one of the newbies, really impressed me a lot, ever since she came about. But however, like you wouldn't expect a whole lot. I mean, it could have gone. It would have been an upset if Zoe Clark was ever to beat Zoe Starks to beat Dakota Kai. I'm like, wow, it was a good match. But however, she came up short, losing to Dakota Kai, and they're sending a clear message to her. But however, here comes the NXT Women's Champion, Io Shirai, coming out. And she had a contract in her hand. Now, Dakota thought in her mind that she's going to get the title shot, but in reality, Io chose Raquel Gonzalez. Later on in the episode, it was shown that Rachel believes that Io made the biggest mistake in her life. She believes that she could dethrone her. But however, Dakota Kai came from William Regal's office, was informed that she and Gonzalez are going to team up to take on both Io Shirai and Zoe Starks next week. And they are still trying to prove that they're the ones who run the division. But I have that distinct feeling that some point down the line, we may see that Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez are going to dissolve. I mean, it's bound to happen sooner or later. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, because that sometimes it happens. We've seen it, we witnessed it, but I have that distinct feeling. But we'll see how that's going to be played out down the road. Now, grizzled young veterans are still a little pissed after what happened. What was it, last week? MSK actually got their little payback. They're sending a clear message to MSK. I don't know if they felt like they were robbed from losing the Dusty Rhodes Classics to them. But I do have a feeling that at some point, I don't know if this is going to happen or not, because we do know MSK will have a shot of the NXT Tag Team titles. They do have a right for that. I'm not sure if they're going to put that on the line against grizzled young veterans who are determined that they are the best tag team in the world. I mean, they are the first ever NXT UK Tag Team Champions. That is something that we are well aware of. Now we get to the interesting match. We got Marcel Bartel taking on Tommaso Ciampa. Ciampa took out Eichner, but it was a pretty interesting match how Tommaso Ciampa took his aggression out of members of Imperium because they showed up out of the blue. At some point, you think Bartel was going to win it, but it didn't go exactly like that. It ended with Eichner trying to get involved, but not enough help. But Ciampa actually took the win so greatly on this one. But however, we just saw the appearance of the in-ring general himself, the leader of Imperium, Walter, and who's also the NXT UK champion, who has held it over 600 days for that title. Now, to me, it wouldn't be a coincidence that he show up here because, like I said, or you heard this many times over, WrestleMania week is coming up very soon within a month. What better way for Walter to come around for NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver? I mean, that's my guess right there. I don't know if you guys would see that, but that is something you should consider. But it's doubtful that he's going to put that title on the line. That's my opinion. But we'll see where they're going to go with that. Now, we are anticipated the debut of LA Knight. He comes out saying what he needs to say. But of course, right behind him, you see Bronson Reed. He goes to his locker room. Don't know what he's going to do, but I had a feeling he's going to do something really funny. LA Knight was in a match against August Gray. But however, it seems Bronson Reed got the last laugh. He got the infamous blue jacket. And he stretched it out. He ripped a hole in it because of his size. I'm like, that is really funny. But LA Knight was distracted, but however, he was furious that his favorite jacket got ruined. I mean, it did, but apparently that did not stop him from the match. But it did allow LA Knight to win, but this is going to be one heck of a feud that we're going to be witnessing between LA Knight and Bronson Reed. So, I can't wait to see what they're going to do next week with this one. Now we jump into the main event, which is the NXT Tag Team titles. Much of the match, I have to say, Finn Balor never tagged in much of it, but I don't know how the coexistence between Balor and Karrion Kross would work. But it kind of it imploded a little bit when Balor accidentally kicked what's his name, Lorcan. But of course, Scarlett got in the crossfire, and because of that, Kross was enraged. It did allow Lorcan to win the match, allowing for the current champions to retain the titles. But however, Kross took it out, more rage against them for what he did. So it looks like we are going to see the feud continue between Kross and Balor, going all the way to Takeover, Stand and Deliver. And I'm excited to see that match when we get there. So I think that's pretty much it with NXT. So let's give my final thoughts on what I thought about these two shows. And I'm see if I can do this in 5 minutes. If not, then I'll slap myself in the head. So let's do that right now. Alright, so what are my final thoughts on both AEW and NXT? Both shows were great. Not gonna lie about that. But however, I feel the edge goes to AEW. I'm not being biased on this, but I have to say the one thing that stood out the most is the main event. But let me explain the side of NXT for a little bit for all of you guys so you can understand. NXT, I have to say, they're improving well. Recent times, they have been building up good storylines. I mean, we know they're not good at that. I mean, they're good at building matches, but creating storylines, that is something that we're not good at. AEW, we're good at that with the storylines. But however, I feel now with this is working well for them, building up the stories that are leading up to NXT Takeover, Stand and Deliver. I just feel this is the right timing for them to do that. But however, we have seen in recent times, because of the ratings, that they have not been reaching the top goal with their 18 to 49 demographic that we mentioned a lot in this. It explains a lot about it. Now let's talk about the AEW why I feel. I have to say the main event kind of stand out the most because this was a brutal match. Chairs, ladders, tables, thumbtacks. I mean, that is something you don't see or you will ever see with WWE. But I feel the women kind of stepped up the game, main eventing. I know that's something that was discussed many times over with WWE that women can main event in WWE, but now we're seeing that okay, AEW women's can main event, and I feel Tony Khan kind of played it out pretty well, that he made this match happen for us fans because I know that there's been people who fans and critics that criticize AEW over the women's division. I mean, you guys could agree with that, but I feel like maybe this match kind of proved that, like saying, okay, what are you gonna say now? Continue to criticize us, or give us the applaud we need that we put out a good match? That's how I see it. If you guys don't know this, I mentioned already, Mick Foley gave his stamp of approval. He gave the thumbs up. I mean, would you accept the thumbs up? I would. But I have to say it was a good match. I don't know if you guys saw the fallout of in YouTube where what happened after the match. You know, the women did a great job. Even Britt said that hope she made Moxley proud because it's his wheelhouse. I mean, this is something you guys should know. Not a lot of women could do this type of match. Recently, I have seen Japanese wrestler Rina Yamashita. She's involved in this. Like she's involved in hardcore death matches. But seeing Britt and Thunder Rosa being involved in things like this was amazing. So I feel okay. AEW did a fantastic job with the main event, having the women's end the show like that. That's plain and simple how I feel. I mean, I didn't want to leave my own house because I wanted to see this. My heart was racing, seeing everything. But what can I say? So, like I said, AEW has the edge from what I feel. That's my final thoughts right now. So, I'm going to end the episode by having a little talk and discussion about Andrade, about what's been going on with him with WWE. So, let's do that right now. Okay, as you know, in the recent news updates that I posted out, last week, Andrade requested his release from the WWE. And it was reported by Dave Meltzer days later that WWE denied his request. Now, some of you would say, why would he request it now? I mean, he's in good shape. I mean, I agree with all of you. He's in good shape. He's in his prime. But let's talk how this whole thing happened. Last October, Andrade got injured. He was out of action for quite some time. As you know, he probably will return and all that. But however, typical WWE, the creative team don't have anything for him. Now, some of you would say, what the hell, guys? Why don't you got anything for him? I mean, that is an excellent question. Why would you put his name on the side on the bench or on the shelf, knowing he could return? That is one of the things that bothered us. Now, keep in mind, Andrade is not just going to sit at home, do nothing. Well, while he's being paid. Don't get me wrong, he's being paid, but however, he feels like that's not what I want. I need to do something. I need to work. I need to wrestle. That's who he is. And yet his request was denied. But I know some of you are right now thinking, for those who are diehard AEW fans, are saying, I can spell AEW coming soon. I mean, yes, we could see that coming around. We know that AEW are good at trying to build up positions for good wrestlers being in having good storylines. Because here's the thing, Andrade is in good shape. He's in his prime. The guy knows how to wrestle, you know. We know him as La Sombra from Consejo Mundial Lucha Libre. And that kind of is the thing that kind of bothers me is like, why you put this guy on the sideline? Now, I did find out later something interesting. As you guys know, Andrade is in fact engaged to Charlotte Flair, the daughter of Ric Flair. Now, Charlotte did stated that she pitched an idea to have Andrade and her team together, build up a storyline. But once again, typical WWE denied it. I mean, I get Charlotte Flair does have some pull in it, but we need to ask ourselves this obvious question: why are you guys not putting him at the top? The dude is talented. Don't get me wrong, he's talented. But they should not have put him in the shelf. Now, some of you are saying, okay, he could go to AEW. I mean, look, he could go other than AEW. He can go to Impact Wrestling. Maybe he has a shot for the X Division Championship or the Unified Impact World Title. Or the obvious one, which many people would say, he can go back to Mexico. You know, I mean, he's with Consejo Mundial. He was with Consejo Mundial, but I'm not sure if they will take him back. I mean, he can go with AAA, but that's the obvious choice. But I feel that WWE are making these dumb decisions with guys like Andrade. The dude is talented. I know some of you say there's talk with Tony Khan said he wants to have a conversation with Zelina Vega. I mean, what if they put them together? I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I would like to see that, but we need to see them succeed on their own. Do we really need to see that combination with Zelina and Andrade? I feel no. Let Zelina focus being a good competitor, a good wrestler that maybe one day will become champion, because that was the build up they wanted her to do in WWE, but we never got the chance until she got fired. And Andrade, we know we can focus on him more. I mean, that's how what I would picture it. But what I feel is Andrade, he's gonna sit out at home, which is a smart thing. But if I was Andrade, stay in shape, because you may never know who might sign you or where you might go. You may go to Florida, you may go to Nashville, or back to your home country. Whatever way, we know he'll be okay. But this is why I have a problem with WWE. Some of you do. They need to stop putting people on the shelf. If you know for a fact your wrestlers are injured, figure out a way to bring them back when they come back from injury. Don't try to wait on your ass like saying, we got nothing for them. To me, that's like telling me you guys don't know what to do. Whoever are these creative teams, they need to fire their asses. That's my opinion. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Coming up, we got more on the New Japan Cup. Who advances in the quarterfinals, or who's in the quarterfinals, however it's now being played out. So, right now, I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time and the next DWZ channel. So, I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang!